Thank you, everybody, for subscribing to the Quiet Time Podcast. I am your host, Bennie Fowler. I am from Detroit, Michigan. I am a current NFL veteran. I am a Super Bowl champion. I am also the person who caught the last pass of Peyton Manning's career. I am also one of 4 people who have caught a pass from both of the Manning brothers. I'm also a best-selling author of Silver Spoon, The Imperfect Guide to Success. The biggest room in the world is room for improvement. We can always constantly improve. But you will also hear from some of the world's best athletes, some of my friends, some of my colleagues. You'll be hearing from all different types of people. We will be talking about championship habits, mindset, leadership, goal setting, handling adversity, handling success, and being the champion of your own life. Here's a brief conversation between myself and my father on leadership.
I just want to welcome you, Dad, Bennie Fowler Junior, former executive of Ford Motor Company of Global Quality and Manufacturing. Today we're going to be talking about leadership. So I got some leadership questions for you and some perseverance questions. So we'll just dive right into it. Just as you as a father, also an executive, and just a friend, like your leadership skills and what you've put into it. So what are the key traits of a leader?
Well, I think that, one of the things that I've learned about it is if you're going to lead, the first thing is you have to be led, because you're not going to grow up as a leader yourself, when you're born. So that means, as a kid, there are going to be people that are in your life that are going to help you formulate the traits that as you become a person that's going to lead, that comes early in life. And I just go back to the things that my father tried to teach me, and some of the things that he tried to teach me, I probably wasn't as acutely aware of them as I have entered into my adult years in terms of what he tried to teach me. And things like getting up early every morning, making sure that your bed is made. And it was just a simple task that you had to do every day. And my father was a sergeant in the Army, so he'd come behind you, and there was a certain way that the bed needed to be made. And these are the things that you learn from him. Just a simple task of the day. You try to do it with a certain standard of excellence. And then, simple things like learning the value of work. So getting up and trying to earn a dollar every day. And I saw how hard he worked, as a guy throwing 50-pound bags of fertilizer. Sometimes I used to take him lunch down where he worked at, and you can see him taking these big 50-pound bags of fertilizer and throwing them and stacking them on a pallet, ready to be shipped. And you don't understand the value of that until you have to do it yourself. So from a leadership standpoint, big thing is preparation to meet the challenge. I spend a lot of time trying to study situations that I'm in or going to be put into to lead. Once I get there, as a leader, you got to figure out it's not all about you. It's going to be about the team, and really understanding what the team's members' goals and desires are, because we all have them, and then trying to help them grow and develop to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. And so, that's a big part of leading. It's not going to be all about you. And I think if you're able to help successfully help the members of your team grow and develop, and to achieve to deliver the assignments that they have as a part of the team, you can bring that together as a whole, and you can create special situations out of that.
I like that. So first, as a leader, we have to follow. You have to follow, and you have to understand what you really want to get out of it.
Right. Well, everybody wants to be the leader, but everybody can't. And the best teams know that everybody has to play their part on the team in order to have any chance of having success. You can't really have one guy, no matter how great that one person is, to try to beat a team. And there have been times where I've chosen people who may not be the most gifted or the most athletic, and But what I love about them is their work ethic and their abilities to do the things that they need to do inside the system that we put together in order for us to win or to deliver what we got to deliver. And I mean, that's again, taking people with their raw natural talents and abilities and helping them achieve more than they ever thought that they could achieve.
So how do you hold people accountable at the executive level, working as an executive, as a vice president of Ford Motor Company? How do you hold people accountable? It's because you had so many people under you that, to perform their tasks every single day. And, you can touch on the meetings that you used to have with your boss and then how you would have those Friday meetings with your team. But how do you hold people accountable?
Well, I think that I err on the side that everybody wants to hold themselves accountable. And again, if I come into any situation, there are metrics that define whether we're going to be succeed or not. So if you're in a for-profit business or a business that is responsible for delivering shareholder value, with stock price appreciation, with the amount of profits that you made, with the amount of costs that you have, et cetera, you know what those metrics are. And one of the things that you have to do in the very beginning is you can't assume that they all know. So we really try to define and put a definition to what the metrics are. So number one, make sure you define what winning and success looks like in terms of the metrics, number one. Number two, if you're supposed to make $10 million every year, I mean, simply put, when the reports come in from a financial standpoint, it would be pretty evident whether you made the 10 million or not. So what we really try to do is to set up a reliable process so that people can see every week how they're performing. And if you set the system up so it's a self-reporting system, so if you came in and said to me, well, I made $9 million and I was supposed to make 10, we would automatically know you're supposed to make 10, you make 9, and you would be saying that to me. Now, the accountability for me comes with the key question is, if we're supposed to make 10 and we're making 9, well, how can I help you? So the first thing is it's got to be clear, it's got to be transparent, and the person has to tell you the truth, and they have to tell you that early if something is not going the way it was supposed to. And my mantra has always been with my team is you have no authority to fail on your own. So that if we know of what the goal is and the objective is, and I have the skills and the abilities to really come visit you, and we start to look at the basic fundamentals of how we are supposed to achieve the goals. And the first thing I'm asking the team is, did we follow the basic fundamental things that we were supposed to achieve? If not, well, let's start there and get back onto the fundamentals of delivering the goals. And most of the time, if we go with the standards and the fundamentals of what we're supposed to be doing, we can normally get an operation back on track. Now, there's two things that I said in that statement that are kind of no-nos for me. First of all, not making it clear and transparent and telling the truth early. Because if you don't tell the truth and no one knows about it, no one can help you. That's number one. And these are the things that at our level, you just cannot have happen because they're integrity issues, and too many people's lives depend upon the integrity and what we actually say to be true. And that's one of the behavioral tendencies at my level or at any level that could be a knockout blow for a top executive in a company.
The integrity, the integrity and the truth.
Integrity in terms of what you're saying and what you're doing. Because if we are a for-profit organization and you're investing your life savings in us, and we come up and tell you a lie about what we're making, the profitability, I mean, you can't make a fundamental decision as a investor or a shareholder as to what you're going to do. So the best thing to do is we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that what we say, what our boss or CEO is going to go onto the stage and say, we go through that with a lot of rigor just to try to make sure that everything that we say is reliable and accurate. And part of my meeting cadence, and the reason I do it as frequently as I do every week, is that you get a chance, that I'm going to be with you every Friday morning. And I know I'm going to be with my boss every Thursday morning. And so therefore, if something's going awry and we need to make a course change, or if we need to provide different resources to help the person or the issue succeed, then you have the whole team that's present to help out there. And that's a critical fundamental for success in being a leader and being at the level of where we are. And the key point for us every Thursday and every Friday of going through these meetings is you get a chance to see what your own performance is. And so therefore, if I'm supposed to deliver certain metrics and quality, I know because I've talked to my team on Friday. The following Thursday, I'm going to talk to my boss about it. And the one thing that we commit to each other is telling the truth and telling it early and making sure that the information is transparent so the team can see where our performance is going. And if that is the biggest challenge that you have in any corporation, the accountability, it rests in the process that we put in to make the information reliable and fact-based.
So everything is based off facts. That's how you're coming at every meeting. It's based off the numbers. Numbers don't lie. And that's what's going to hold the people accountable, especially those meetings on a Thursday and a Friday. You know that you have to come correct in your Thursday meeting with your boss because that depends on your livelihood.
Absolutely. My boss would tell us the data will set you free. So they'll let you know one way or another, are you on track or are you off track? And when I first met him, we were having a discussion about having one-on-ones, and he would tell me, well, we one-on-ones, you won't have to have them that frequently because we're going to be doing this live in the open, as a team every Thursday. And then I would say the same thing to my team. I was doing that quite a bit in all the meetings that I set up when I was at the lower level in the organization. And then as I moved into the executive suite, it became even more prominent that a reliable fact-based process is the key to success, and having everybody understand that we are on the same page, trying to win in a very competitive marketplace.
So what's the ways that you separated yourself as a leader? Obviously, the data will set you free, and that's the way you've moved up. But it has to be your ability to communicate, listen to other people, and then delegate responsibilities. How did you go about that? How did you go about that with working with other people, moving yourself up the ranks, taking the risks as a leader? You took risks. You moved to Canada. You also moved to London. You took risks as a person. So, talk a little bit about that.
Well, one of the things I'll say is coming through. I was given a lot of very, very tough assignments early, and some of them were assignments that were in the U.S., some were in Canada, as you pointed out, and there were some in the U.K. And if I think about the very basic being given these big assignments and challenges, you can look at it two ways. Sometimes you look at it and say, well, they're giving me these assignments in hopes that I fail. But they're giving you these assignments because they've seen you succeed in other difficult situations on a smaller level. And if they're going to take you from a U.S.-based operation into a Canadian-based operation, there is a degree of risk on both sides. And what they're basically saying is they've seen you organize the information, get the team organized, as we talked about, set up a disciplined meeting cadence, and you use the right methods and tools to help the team extract the waste and deliver the performance that is expected out of that organization. And we cannot take, just like if you are going out and playing football, that everybody does not do these things at the same level. So there's varying degrees of execution that people look at to say, hey, if I'm in trouble in a given place and I need to move this organization away, at a certain point in your life and career, people tell you you have been designated as a corporate asset, meaning I'm going to take you and I'm going to put you in these situations because we know that you can, the probability of them turning around is higher if we insert you into that situation. And then they've kind of studied the personnel that are there, and they make decisions on that basis, just like in an NFL team, NBA team. They're trying to make the moves that are necessary in order to have the situation be corrected. And if you are an impact player, like I want it to be, there's certain things that you know you have to do every time you get called to do one of these situations. It is a deep spiritual, emotional base that you must have in the belief that God has called you and put you in these situations to be able to do what people are asking you to do. That's number one. Number two, that every time I go into a different job at a different level, I start to study the elements of what is required to be successful in that role. And number three, it's like the people are the most important. And a lot of times people tell me, well, Benny, you may have to go up there and go somewhere and fire the people. And I said, well, I don't know why I would want to even do that. I'm going into the situation. I'm trying to catch everybody doing something right. So I don't have to start all over because they have knowledge, skills, and abilities. If you've been in a place for 25 or 30 years, you can't replace that overnight. So what I try to do is just, find the skills and try to understand what the key challenges are facing the leaders and then try to help them with that.
Let's shift a little bit to the way you have raised myself, Chris, Taylor, and Madison. 4 kids, all successful in sports. But there were a lot of things that you did for us early on, especially with Power Stroke, putting us in sports situations. But you didn't force us to play sports, but you let sports kind of teach us the fundamentals of life in terms of discipline and setting goals. Talk about your process about that just in terms of a parent, just because, I am your firstborn, but you didn't have a playbook on how to, necessarily raise me. And I think I've turned out okay.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. I didn't have a playbook. And so I want to just go back and say, if I think about sports per se, it played a major role in my life and development because every coach that I had always talked to me about the fact that playing sports is not the end all be all, meaning not everybody is going to be a professional athlete like you are, like Chris has become, like the girls are on their way to being. Not everybody's going to do that. So really, there's purposes for that. First of all, you got to be in condition to play it. Second, you got to learn to work together, as a team in order to have any chance of winning. Third, you're gonna learn to win, and you're gonna learn to lose. If you win, you got to win gracefully. If you lose, you also got to understand that you have to lose gracefully, but you don't have to accept losing as the way of life. You're going to face challenges, and many times, when I first start playing sports, especially at the high school level, my coach where there'd be like 200 people coming up for basketball every year to try to make the team. And he would start with conditioning exercises where, you start off and we'd be running for like a half hour doing some jogging. And then he'd come down off the stage and say, hey, now you're ready to run. So he'd group us in 6. After a half hour, he's sitting up on the stage reading the newspaper and eating peanuts, and we're out there running. So then we get divided into teams of 6, and you got to sprint around the court 4 or 5 times, and then on the 4th lap, somebody else will catch up with you, and you just ask yourself, well, what's the purpose of that, of something like that? And I'm telling this story because by day 5 or 6, we're down to like 15 or 16 players from 200. And And so it's just one of those things where you're going through an exercise like that and you're asking, why would you ever do that? And if you got so many people that are called for it and you only got 10 or 15 slots, I mean, it's going to be, do you really want to play basketball or not? And he didn't tell us that in the beginning when I first started, but I knew fundamentally that's what happened because, people just started to fall away because the number one thing you got to do in any sport is get yourself mentally and physically ready to play. And by the time we got to those 15, then you knew that you had the ingredients because you've already tested them. And one of the major things that you have to do in any professional sport, and that's to get in condition and get yourself mentally and physically ready to go through the rigors because there's going to be other people competing against you. So, and I remember bringing it back to the power stroke situation. The first time in starting it, as you know, we started off with the little grasshopper basketball. Yep. And we would go there every Saturday, and it'd be a 6-week class where we would volunteer, and we were just doing the basic fundamentals. And I loved that because it was steeped in just learning how to dribble, learning how to make a layup, learning how to do that, and then we might have a little test at the end where we had a 15-minute scrimmage at the end. And by the time we got to the third session, and there were other newbies coming in, I'll call it new players coming into the camp, it was time to say, okay, you guys are far superior to the new players coming in. So maybe it is time for you to move on to a different level of competition. So number one, it started with the basic fundamentals. And I really wanted to participate with you in terms of learning. If you are going to be in any sport, you have to start with the basic fundamentals. If you're going to be successful in a corporation, it's the same thing. You have to start with the basic fundamentals of what you're trying to do in terms of looking at customers, designing, developing, manufacturing, marketing. That's what you do all day, every day. And the key to it is developing the fundamental baseline to have a great corporation or to have a great team or to have a great anything. And every now and then you might be able to trade like you guys do and transition players to make it up, but they're all trying to pick players from around so that they have the best chance to win. It's no different than that. I wanted to try to teach you guys about competition. And, it's a funny thing that when you learn the basic elements that you did and the fundamentals, it was a long time before you guys lost the game. But when we lost the game, there are some emotional ties to it because all of you guys start crying, and I'd not seen you, even though I had tested you quite a bit. I had seen you, the first time I see you, you guys starting to cry and all that at 8, 9 years old, and that had a dramatic effect on me because that was going to be my last year coaching.
That was devastating. We lost 4-2 to the Shockers. 4-2.
To the RNG All-Stars.
Was it RNG?
Yeah,
I thought it was the Shockers.
Sean McCullough's group.
Okay,
we
RNG
changed the location, went over to from Van Dyke where we were playing over to 1300 Bovian. And
Mikey Moore came to that game.
The crowds were hostile over there. Different. And I don't mean hostile in a bad sense, but I'm saying they were hyped up, and Sean was a big hype guy, and he had a big parent section over there. And it was an emotional day, but nonetheless, we all had to learn how to handle the situation that we were in. You guys from the loss, me as a coach handling the emotions of the tears that you see kids go through, and because fundamentally that left an opportunity for us all both to learn. And the other part about the whole sports thing was you take the opportunities to teach lessons that get learned from competition, winning, losing situations, the emotions of every player wanting to be a superstar, every parent wanting their kid to be a superstar or to playing time. So it's just so many things that you can learn from that. Obviously when we moved in, we started to put rules in about protection of yourself, like wearing 2 pairs of socks, always coming to the gym with your mouthpiece on, and the proper hydration when you get done, how to take care of yourself so that you don't go out and get sick. And I see a lot of players, every time they get done, they just walk out. They don't dry themselves off. They don't do the things that we're supposed to. And that was a particular challenge to me. I always talk to them about nutrition, eating before you come. And every now and then I'd have a kid that would get dizzy because the kid didn't eat before, at the proper time before he came into the gym to play. And these are things that you have to watch for as a coach with that many kids out there, because the training that we did was regimented. It wasn't easy. And we tried to teach you guys the things that would advance you once you got to the high school levels, because we just did up to the 8th and the 9th grade. And obviously there were many all-star teams that you guys were picked for and qualified for once you got to the high school level. And to me, that's what it was all about. And I knew that by the time you guys got into the 6th and 7th grade, where we started to compete not only on the state level, but on the national level, I felt like we didn't win every game, but I felt like that what we wanted to accomplish in terms of the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of it, the beliefs in yourself, teammates, and coaches were basic foundational things that we wanted you to learn from that. And then, there were, I know, lifelong friends that you guys made, as well as I did. And it was just a truly special situation. And some of the coaches and I, we get together from time to time. And when one of you guys is playing, or if we can get together in a town somewhere in America, it's a great opportunity for us to fellowship and to reflect on how special it was for us to be with you guys in the gym to have you accomplish what you accomplished. So there's a fair amount that as a parent, if you're there, that you get out of being there.
So you talked about one of your most difficult moments as a coach, seeing us cry after that game because we had never lost. What about one of your most difficult moments as a leader, as an executive? Like, what was a difficult moment right there, and how did you navigate through that? Because, right now, this is a tough time with this virus, but if people are having tough times in their company, say the recession, how did you use your leadership skills right then and there? How did you do your part to keep the company afloat? And how did you go about that? Like, your tough leadership moments, and how did you go about that?
First off, I want to say, I'm going to start with when I went to England, and then I'll kind of come full circle. First, I remember I was asked to go to England to be the chief operating officer for Jaguar and Land Rover. And that's based in the UK. And before I got there, I had to actually go on an interview or to talk to the leader, which was at that time Mark Fields. And I didn't have a passport, so I had to get one. And then I had to fly to England, and I had never really been that far internationally before. And so therefore, and then I had to check into a hotel, and then I had to meet him in a restaurant that he had given me the name and the address to. So to me, that was kind of a scary situation, And obviously, when something of that magnitude of importance to the beginning, you want to try to make sure that you pack everything and that you don't leave your belt behind or a tie or something that's important to, presenting yourself in there. And so, I kind of made it there. And then obviously I wanted to be there on time, and I didn't know very much about how far the restaurant was or whatever. So like I normally do in preparing for games, I tried to, I left probably an hour and a half early, and I probably had to sit there for an hour because it wasn't as onerous to get there as I thought that I'd had in my mind. So that was kind of the biggest game in town. We had a discussion about it, and then ultimately I was appointed to the position, and then I flew over. Came back home, and then I had to fly over with Mark Fields' boss. And we flew over on the company plane, and I landed there, and we were about to lose $250 million that year on a $10 billion business. And so therefore, being an American in the UK, in a situation where there's the diversity in the organization was not the kind of diversity, and no other African Americans there except for me on the operating team. So it's kind of a scary but challenging situation. That being said, one of the things that I had to, again, call on is the belief that I should be there, could be there, and I could do the job. And probably the toughest thing that I had to do as an executive then was to say, hey, you guys were still going to be here in the U.S., you and Chris, and I was going to be over there. And that it was at a critical time in you guys' development. So it was a tough decision to make, but it was also a decision that if I didn't make, it wouldn't have meant that I wouldn't have been a vice president, but it would have altered the course and the time frame in which I would have been one or an officer in the company. So it was a big sacrifice. And obviously the partnership that your mom and I and Kelly and everybody had in terms of working that situation out was a true benefit to me. Being on the ground with that kind of happening, the organization was into a major launch of one of the big sedans that they had, and one of the plants had been down for like 6 months and hadn't made any cars. And so when you have a situation like that, that's a big revenue drain on the operation. So the first course of business was to see who was on the team, to understand them. And I had a very diverse team. One guy, one of my team was from Australia, one was from Sweden, one was from the UK. And not sure if I had any Americans, but now you're in a situation where you're leading a more diverse team, one that's international in nature, and one that has a claim in their own particular function. But the way we're executing is not delivering the performance that is expected out of the organization. And one of the things quickly was what we talked about earlier. Assess the current situation. What are we losing and why? Start to put a more disciplined team meeting cadence in, because while they were all talented individuals, their meetings together were not very respectful and were not coordinated and integrated. So you really start to get the information laid out, get it all set up. And trust me, these are like going in and asking an out-of-shape team to now start to run wind sprints. And obviously that, for the American being over there now telling us what to do, is never going to be taken that lightly. So becoming acutely aware that these set of circumstances are before you, then you have to learn certain cultural aspects, and you have to do it quickly. So the fundamental change in terms of getting to a higher level, leading more talented people, you have to get some coaching, and I did. There was a coach that was over there that was assigned to me to help me learn some of the cultural elements of directing versus coaching, and changing the management style to a more what I call a questioning-based approach. And so that was probably the major transition for me in terms of being in that environment. And I have to say that it was a 24/7 job. When I came back over here, I probably went to work a little later and came to work, or left work a little earlier for about 6 weeks because I was exhausted. So emotional stamina in that role was probably the most challenging situation that I had in the UK. But that was a kind of a setup for what was about to happen. We had turned the business around, and it was about to make $750 million. So it was a $1 billion turnaround. And I had been told that I was going to be over there for another 2.5 years on a Monday. And then, so I was on my way because it was your graduation from the 8th grade. I think you were graduating from Grosse Pointe Academy, and I was coming home for your birthday as well as your graduation ceremony. And I told them if I was going to be over there for another 2.5 years, then I was going to have an apartment over here because I was going to be 2 weeks over here in the U.S. and 2 weeks in the U.K. And what ended up happening is we had an executive meeting. I think it was on a Wednesday or Thursday, and on a Friday, I was called into the office and told my assignment had changed, and my assignment was not going to be over there for another 2.5 years. That I was coming back home to the U.S. because the U.S. had reported that they were about to lose almost $12 billion, and so I was one of 11 executives that was chosen to come in and try to get that situation turned around. Because if we hadn't, we would have probably lost the Ford Motor Company and everything.
Ford was getting ready to lose $12 billion.
Yeah, and
wow.
That was in the Great Recession, about 2005-06 timeframe. So it was a big situation that we were in, and so therefore. When you get a situation like that, the management team, the people that are in charge at the time, they go in and they say, okay, do we have the right team in place, or are we going to assemble the team? And then, you either get the call or you don't. And I was one of the guys that was called to help with the situation. And obviously, when you're losing that much money and you get called to help, you just get on a plane and you come home and you get ready to do it. But I needed to get myself, I had to recover from the 2.5 plus years I was over in the UK. I wasn't physically ready to go at that time. So it took a lot to, I probably slept 14, 15 hours a day, more than I would normally do. Because it was just hard for me to recover. And we were in a transition place because somebody was still living in our place in Franklin. So we were in that executive apartment for that length of time. So, it's just the emotional challenges of playing at a high level. If you're playing that way for a long period of time, it's no different than basketball. If you're playing, it's an emotional, physical drain on you. A lot of people think, you just go sit in the office and drink coffee all day. It's not like that. It's like people's lives are on the line, and you really have to understand that when you get put in these big positions like that, you have a tremendous responsibility for what you have to get done.
Yeah, I totally agree. Playing in the NFL is definitely like that, and you can see the stress on the coaches' faces. They're in that building all day trying to just win these games because they have a family at home. And you can see the stress within the locker room just with players because you just never know what happens. The money's not guaranteed. There's politics involved. So there's just so much involved. If you had to go back and tell yourself or change some things during those emotionally draining periods, what would you tell yourself? What would you change, or what would you tell yourself back then?
One of the bigger things that I tried to do after that, and you talked about having a wife and 4 kids with your activities moving in different ways, and one of the things that Kelly helped me with immensely was getting my calendars to be integrated. So that means when all the schedules come out, when all the plays and everything come out, you get the schedules for that. And then, we had I'm still coaching Power Stroke. So you really have to set a meeting cadence and integrate everything into your life in terms of the way you to handle all of the family and the professional challenges that you have. And then, try to put in like the date nights. That's one of the big things for me. There's a certain time on a Friday that I'm looking forward to because, I have to have it for my emotional recovery. And then if I were to go back and do it all over again, the one thing that I would probably focus on a lot more throughout that time would be diet and just exercise. Because I mean, I think that those, if I were doing it all over again, those would be the things that I would likely focus on a lot more.
So balance is super important. As much work and as much time as you were putting in on the weekends, and you've been doing that since I've been born, because you used to take Chris and I to work on Saturdays, take us to the plant. Having that balance and having that rest and reflection and, working out and taking care of your body, that's the thing you would change the most.
Yeah, that's the thing I would probably change the most, because, obviously my weight has fluctuated up and down during that period. And obviously maintaining the proper health in industry is as important as it is in any other sport. So, it's the industrial athlete that people have to understand. It's a tremendous toll on them. When I was a supervisor, if there's somebody supervising the line of being a superintendent, you could walk miles a day because you're never in the office sitting down. When I was a plant manager, I would be out in the facility a lot. And when I go to executive reviews, there are not a lot of sit-down reviews. A lot of times I was out in the facilities walking through day to day, or just like we were, you just sometimes get on the cart and we would just ride through it, because every manufacturing location I had was like 3.8 million square feet from end to end. So trying to get to the point where you understand that with 4,000 people, and it's like a little small city. And if you're a plant manager, if you have multiple facilities, which I did many, many times throughout my career, it's like if you go into Atlanta, Chicago, Canada, Kansas City, different places where I had to travel. It's like, just planning to what you had to do to get on the plane. And then once I moved to the global level, and once a month I was in some country, either China, South America, or India, or Australia, whatever. My first international trip, I went from Dearborn to I think my first stop was in Australia. I think I went to China from there and to India, all in the same trip. And when you do something like that, you never will know what the time zone is. The food is much different. So you really got to learn how to pack, how to travel internationally, what to do, what not to do. A lot of people like to go out and start to run around across the town, and that was never the case for me. I did something outside of my operating system once, and by the time I got over Montezuma's revenge because I ate something I wasn't supposed to eat, and it took a big physical toll on me for about a week. So, you just learn that when you do these things, you have to do them with a maximum amount of control and the flexibility to do what you need to do in a given situation.
So we'll wrap it up here on Quiet Time with Bennie Fowler. What's the best advice that you can give somebody about leadership? An upcoming leader or somebody who's at the top of their game, like how you were, what's the best advice you can give about leadership?
Well, like I said before, I'll start back at the very beginning. Start with the fundamentals. It's likely by 20 years old, and many of us don't recognize that your spiritual base, your educational base, and your some of your basic rudiments in life have been turned. Listen to your parents and follow the instructions that they're giving you. Go to school, get your education, learn the value of work, study, and get yourself prepared for the opportunity by 20. That sets the foundation for everything. Now, you don't have to go to college, but you have to do something that's going to continue to establish your base. So I always talk to people about this leadership. By 20, know something. By 30, be something. Meaning, by the time you come out of that educational foundational piece, whether it be trade school, college, whatever it is, normally, if you're on track, it's about 19, 20, unless you're some genius. That's kind of where you hit that mark. And then you come out and you say, before you graduate, start to look for what you want to do and prepare for it. Because most college campuses or most trade schools, they have placement offices. And we never take advantage of the placement office. We start looking for a job after we graduate. It's not too late, but you should start early in, because a lot of the most successful people, they get internships. They talk to family members and they work in the businesses, because these are the things that you're going to have to bargain with when you get in a very crowded marketplaces. Whatever you have is what you're going to be talking about. Get in the clubs, get in the base, team-based activities. So when you start talking to people about what you've learned or the experiences you had, by 20 years old, you could have some very unique experiences for you to be able to talk to. And I remember, what I loved about the schools that you guys went through, there was a, athletic portion of it, there was an arts portion of it, and there was a community service portion of it. And if you really understand the importance of all three of those, you can do that no matter where you go before you're 20 years old. But learn the value of work. When you get into selecting your first professional career, I would always tell people, learn the fundamentals of the job. Because everybody wants to be the CEO, but before you're there, you really got to learn some of the basic things about what you're trying to do. If you're starting your own business, you properly research what it's going to be to start your own business. But if you knew that from the very beginning, you would be more prepared, because preparation is the key to leadership. Know that you're going to face some challenges, and the challenges could be great success, or could be something that you feel that didn't go your way. And a lot of times, if you have great success, it's the enemy of even greater success, because sometimes we stop working once we had that first degree of success. If you fail, just know that there's a foundation for what you got to do. So you're going to learn from that, and you're going to build off of the successes, and you're going to build off the failures. Because if you hit rock bottom, at the end of the day, that becomes a great foundation, because you got to look forward to moving to the next stage. And I've had many, many challenges in my life, and if I look at them today, and start talking about the challenges, it's almost like they were preordained situations that prepared me for the next stage of what I was about to face. And I would just say, have a good relationship with God to start every day. And because times are going to be tough, challenges are going to be tough, and we all face them no matter what stage you are in life. And so our abilities to work together, to have the right relationships, to have people in your life that are going to help you move on, to have the right mentors and coaches and guides, they will all be important to your success. And I believe that, like you believe, if you believe in you, everyone else will believe in you too.
Dad, but I appreciate you being in my podcast, Quiet Time. I love you and I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Love you too. Look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, Dad.
This is just the beginning for this podcast. I'm excited about the upcoming conversations that we are going to be having with these championship people, and I'm really excited about sharing this podcast with everybody. Much love to you all. Positive living, positive vibes only. Thank you.